I'm going to be honest here, while I like the idea of better produced images and potential sponsorships, one of the things I like about the channel at the moment is the fact that it seems rather freeform and rather honest. The conversations you already have seem real and genuine with your audience, because I believe they are, and I think that losing that would take away from the content. Either way, I'm excited to see what you do with the channel going forward. So thank you for your feedback and thank you for being honest. I think honesty is a really good thing to share amongst one another, and your feedback here is actually really valuable to me because you pointed out that at the moment things are very free-form and open, and this is actually a strength of what we're doing right now. I'm not trying to give you all the answers and information, more so just the information that I have and my perspectives on things, and I think that openness needs to be kept going forward. So whenever we do start to ramp up production and try bigger things, I will definitely be keeping that feel in mind. I'm not sure where you're getting this information, but that is not a USB-C problem. That would be a problem with the power delivery controller either being cheaped out or not existing in the first place. That scenario could theoretically happen with any type of connector, whether it would be a micro USB or lighting. All USB-C is a physical standard for a connector for how things connect. So I believe I heard this from Linus Tech Tips, who runs a really great tech channel about computers, and he's not someone I would suspect of ever really being wrong with any of the information that he gives. If I've remembered incorrectly, I apologize, but what I did hear in this video was that using the incorrect USB-C cables could cause this problem. And you might be right, it might just be buying cheaped out ones that are available online. And the advice that was given as a result of this was to always use the cable that comes with the product you're using. So that might be a rule of thumb, because if you use a cheap one you brought online, then it might cause a problem. But I can't say much more on the topic because it was a while ago that I heard that, and maybe it was just a little bit of a problem that's been blown out of proportion or something. Sigh, I just got around to affording a PS4. I miss when you could get a console after it dies and there were still games available for years after the fact. If I'm not mistaken, the second-hand games and game console economy still exists. I think it may have migrated away from shops to online retail stores like eBay, for example. I myself have purchased like a Nintendo 64 game and occasional nostalgia ones to play on my old consoles. But you should be able to, get PS4 games for some time, the physical discs. As people transition to PS5, they tend to try and get rid of their PS4 games, right? So unless you're thinking only using things online, then, maybe you don't have access to the physical discs. But even online, the PlayStation 4 will still be supported for years to come. I don't know what the status of the PS3 is, but I'm pretty sure its store will still be operational for those that are still playing on a PlayStation 3. So I would go and do some research and look into it. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to buy PS4 games for some years to come. Haptic feedback is to do with your sense of touch, which sounds like they're going to vibrate as they have since DualShock 2. It's either barely worth mentioning or really high tech. I've since learned what the haptic feedback is. So in DualShock controllers, what you have is a rumble shock, which means one type of generic rumbling. There's basically a weight that gets spun around to make the whole controller shake. Now what haptic feedback is going to be like is more like a mobile phone's, let's call it a rumble. It's not, it's slightly different. It's the haptic feedback. It's a way of making the device vibrate, but it can vibrate in many different ways. And what they're saying is, depending on what sort of game you're playing, the programmers can programming different feedback to you. The example I heard that was like shooting a gun might feel really heavy, and then if you're playing a football game and you get tackled, it might feel very different. So basically the sensory input that you get through that shaking of the controller is going to be more fine-tuned and more interesting. What I'm most scared of in this entire thing is that they said they will use machine learning to help them determine whether something is child content or not. We all know how the bots work in regards to monetization. Also, again, YouTube is extremely vague with what they will exactly do. I just don't trust in what they say anymore. I think the vagueness that you're referring to is the non-specific nature of saying machine learning or using algorithms. That doesn't really tell us a full picture of what's happening. It doesn't tell us how the parts inside of the machine work, and if you put in this input, you'll get that output. It is quite mysterious. But this is probably what they will use. I mean, my rep mentioned that they would be using machine learning. I think they've made statements about using it. They're also going to use self-certification to teach machine learning as well. And so basically, there's always going to be things going wrong with machine learning. As you pointed out, demonetization has been somewhat of a nightmare on this platform. And yeah, we're probably actually going to see this happen again. However, it's just one of those things where you have to wait and see, really. As a YouTuber myself, I'm just waiting to see what happens because we don't preemptively know where it's going to go wrong, but we do know it probably will go wrong, right? So hopefully YouTube can deploy that they do in a way where it will go wrong for the least amount of people, but we know it's going to go wrong for some people. I think a wait and see attitude is the best. YouTube does not have a track record that inspires confidence. I'm a bit concerned that you take the YouTube rep's word for anything. Surely you realize it's his job to run cover for YouTube. They could literally be doing anything and he would give you assurances. That's quite assumptive of what my rep's role is. My rep is there to communicate information to me as a creator and help me as a creator, and he has certainly done that, and I'm very impressed with what he does as a YouTube rep. I can see how you might think that he's running cover for YouTube, but they are attempting to be transparent. And if I think back to what it was first like when I joined YouTube, you had no contacts whatsoever. And over the years, they've steadily gotten better, and you have more interactivity with someone who's given information from inside of them. I think that the rep role is genuine. They are trying to actually bridge a problem, which is the lack of communication between the top of YouTube and its creators. Of course, all the dependency on machine learning and algorithms and whatnot means that things are just going wrong left, right, and center, and it's very hard for YouTube to maintain like a good image. But I'd say what they've done with their reps, I really feel like it's been beneficial and helpful. And I wouldn't say they're just trying to cover their own backs. It really feels like they are trying to help us as creators. Question: couldn't a channel that does make content for children just tell YouTube that their content isn't made for children? Does YouTube have a system in place that can keep people honest? What they're going to introduce is self-certification. That means they can tell YouTube what type of content they're making. And the problem is there's going to be so many channels out there telling YouTube what they're doing that if they have anyone being dishonest, it's going to be tricky to figure out, which is why they're also going to be relying on machine learning. One of the things you've got to remember is that there are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of channels. It's so difficult for them to employ people to wade through the enormity of content that is uploaded to YouTube every single day. So it's going to be a mix of self-certification and machine learning to determine which channels have what content. They started this with gun channels and right-wing talk shows. Now they are completely demonetized. Looks like YouTube is gearing up to steal more money from whoever they want with this rule and the future changes that will come. This feels like a very politically steered comment, and also one that paints YouTube in a very dark light. I think you have to look for a broader perspective on who's been hit by demonetization. It's hit people with right-wing views, it's hit people with left-wing views, it's hit media channels, it's hit historical channels are being hit really hard by all of this. There's lots of communities that are being affected, and if you hyper-focus on some of them, it may create like a narrative where you think YouTube has an agenda or something like that. I mean, the situation that they're in is really bad. These channels getting demonetized seems unfair and not right, but the whole thing's really just a big mess, with YouTube just being too big to solve this kind of mess, and they're trying to use machine learning to do it and algorithms all the time, and it's always just going to hit different communities in different ways. So I wouldn't look into it politically or narrativize it as YouTube having an agenda, because if you do that, there's always exceptions to whatever you look at. If it's this community, there's also that community over there being hit, and so I don't see it that way. I prefer this being as raw as it is. Being too professional would take away from it feeling like a conversation, in my opinion. This is very much like the first comment we've done on this video, and I appreciate many of you pointing that out, because it's obviously what you're here for, and so it's something that I will keep in mind moving forward. Although I will want to make my videos more professional, I will still be trying to be me and express things in the same way, right? Well, maybe not the exact same way, but you know what I'm saying? I want to keep this kind of honesty and openness going wherever this channel goes.